Live from the Pitch Pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and INICIVOX. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur that is very passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that's possible after decades of experiencing pitching and enhancing communication skills, which is why I have invited today Lee Hathaway, who is not only a forever pitch star in my book, as far as I'm concerned, but he's also, first and foremost, a really good friend. And the friendship came first for Lee and I. I met him at an industry fundraising event for an organization called Vitamin Angels at a Supply Side West conference in Las Vegas. And I think that was that 2014 or?
Yeah.
All right. So
Correct.
Lee and I are coming up on our 10th, or this is our 10th anniversary, friendship anniversary this year. So I remember specifically how we met, because Lee came up to me and a couple of other professionals I was networking with, and he asked if he could join us at our table. And I had a quick, smart reply back to him, and I told him that yes, he could, but we'd have to charge him $25 for hanging out with us.
Yeah, that's true. But it was funny because you actually noticed me before I really even noticed you guys. I was 3 drinks in and I was like, I need to put down my drink before I make a fool of myself because I can't text with one hand anymore.
But you were real quick on the reply. You were like, sure. And then that's kind of how it started. I think that we've been friends ever since. And Lee, in his own right, he's an entrepreneur himself. He has a family business that he took over in the natural products industry, which is why he was there and how we met. He also has a entertainment background with Disney, which I'm sure we will get into a little bit here. And so this is going to be a little bit of a different interview. A lot of the pitch stars I've had come on, they've been college students. These have been mentees of mine that, I've worked with early stage in their career, but Lee had already had a lot of experience. I did not meet him in the same way. And I actually pretty much begged him to come work for me in 2019. It was one of my busiest years. And I also remember specifically where I asked you to do that. We were at a conference in California at the Terranea Resort. I think the conference is over and we were just both exhausted. I think I was exhausted. You had met me up there at the end of the conference. We were hanging out by their adult only cool pool with the big ocean view. And I was just like worn out. And I knew that I needed some help that year. And I, of course, had all these interns working for me, but I knew that I just needed to duplicate myself. And it's really hard as an entrepreneur to trust people, especially when you're running a small business and you're trying to keep things going. And Lee always every time I was around him, I felt this surge of energy and positivity. And I remember turning to you at the pool and I'm like, can you work with me as my, right-hand person, doing all these things? And he agreed. It actually goes counter to what I know in my head. You're not supposed to hire friends. And I've made some major mistakes hiring friends in the past. I've lost friendships because of it. It's just really hard to mix work and friendship because when you have a personal relationship with somebody, it's also hard to also be the boss. But we've survived it. So and
been successful at it.
Yeah. And I really wanted to have you come on, because 2019 was a crazy year. You went all over the place with me around the country. We did events. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were actually getting ready to head out to an event, and it just
slammed the brakes on everything. And that's kind of the end of Lee and my time together at Pitch. But to me, you're a pitch star because you trusted me in that moment to come work for a crazy entrepreneur and risk our friendship at the same time. And somehow you survived.
Yeah.
But welcome, Lee. I'm so glad that you're here today. And when I think about people that MSH or make shit happen, as we say, I mean, you are number one on the list. I'm so impressed with everything that you do. And I think I've always told people this, that, you don't have to go get a degree in PR to learn how to pitch. I mean, you definitely learn how to pitch and how to make stuff happen from just life and just from, learning kind of from that school of hard knocks of like how to make it happen. And Lee is a shining example of that. So that's why I have you here today. And I want to kind of give some people some insights and inspiration and how you've navigated your career and maybe some of the things that you learned from working with us at Pitch Publicity. So welcome.
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here and do this for you and your company, especially since 2019, I saw that all explode. Yeah, we had a calendar ready to go. And then all of a sudden, March 2020 happened. And so, but here we are today. We've been navigated through and found different ways of communicating and getting your pitch out to the world. So thank you for having me, Amy.
Yeah. So I want to, we did several events together, but there was one in particular that really stands out to me. I was tasked with developing a networking event for a client. It was going to be the Delano in Las Vegas at actually the same conference Leah and I had met at many years ago. And I had come up with this futuristic space themed event. But I came up with the idea and then I did not have time to figure out how to execute it. So that was one of the assignments I gave Lee. I was like, okay, here's all my bright ideas.
Yeah.
Make it happen. And you were in charge of vendors and sourcing talent that we had there. And what skills do you feel like you honed, developed, or gained just in that project alone? Do you remember anything that you picked up from working on that one event experience?
Yeah, I didn't realize it until probably the end when I found out what MSH actually meant in your company. And it was funny because in the end I was like, that's exactly what we did when we looked at the event. But as far as, you threw a bunch of tasks at me where I come from the entertainment background at Disney. I worked there for, Disneyland and entertainment for about 2 decades dancing, but I also had a lot of understanding to what goes into doing events. And, you coming out to California, being on the East Coast I was fortunate enough to get to help you with some of those closing parties and kind of know what your attention to detail was. So when you just started throwing things at me and I was multitasking in my own life with a job and then 3 hours difference, you're like, throwing me stuff. And when you wake up at 5 a.m. where I'm like, oh my God, but it was cool because you let me work at night. And then, as I got used to that, I honed in on sometimes we apply that pressure to us of like, oh my God, we have so many tasks or things that we have to get done. We want to make it successful in the end. And obviously once we got through it, now that I'm thinking about the event clearly and all the steps that we took to make it detailed as Pitch Publicity does, it was remarkable. And the gift that we both got in the end from the client, I had never been treated at Disney like that before. So, to work closely, with somebody like that in a small business and then just be rewarded by a client without you even knowing, we were both like, what? Yeah, that Coach watch was very nice. And I've never had a piece of jewelry like that before. So it's something I still have that I'll probably most likely take to my grave with me. So yeah.
I think that was Sarah. She had gifted us both watches. And I know that really was surprising to you, because here you're coming in as assisting me and not expecting that. But it was very classy. Sarah's very classy, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was for a company called OmniActive, and I would say definitely was an epic, epic event. And it was probably the last big industry event before everything got shut down for the pandemic. So it was quite a good memory. I like what you brought up about the our time difference, because you were living in LA, I was in New York, and you're a night owl. I'm, always getting up at the crack of dawn, whether I like it or not, because I just feel like my brain functions better at that time. And this is one of the things I think is really special about working remotely, which we were doing together. And there were times when I felt like not only have I duplicated myself, I am now working 24 hours, because when I go to bed, I don't need still working. And I
Yeah,
remember
right.
sometimes we would even like talk at 5 a.m. my time, because that's when you were going to bed and I was getting up. But yeah, I think you
I
can get
worked
a
a
lot. I
cafe
think
job in the morning for a couple hours, and like, yeah, you would throw me stuff too, and I get home and just keep going. But
How was that experience of working remote for our company? Because I know you have other uh, jobs that you do and side hustles, but what was it like to have to get yourself organized and just sit down, because you're on the move all the time in front of a computer? What did you learn from that experience?
yeah, oh my gosh, actually, if it wasn't for your organizational skills, especially like what you knew from Google, like, and just kind of, because that was a new world, I want to say at the time, that we could use Excel and Word, and just how you laid stuff out, ended up giving me the confidence that I'm like, okay, like I don't have to outline this. Like I'm not being told something on the phone and then have to like jot it down like we're kind of used to or you see in movies. So, that was like half the battle. And I know getting into like when I first started working with you, I was I had no idea what to expect. I knew your quality, but like, yeah, the fact that you were able to like organize that, hand it to me, and then I could go do my jobs in the day. I could tend to my life, where I realized at night was when I would get myself organized. And then I'd plan myself out the next day to reach out to vendors or do what I needed to follow up. So yeah, it was pretty incredible, because I mean, you had me brand cups for Omni Actives. Like I got performers, like two different styles that I was able to get. One, they lit up like they were astronauts and did a dance routine. And yeah, the girl that was in the elevator coming up that gave the spiel, that was really fun working on with you. And I went out and I actually went into that experience myself, wrote the script, and then you blew it up even better. So it was cool, because like that remote work, like, I was able to like pass stuff off to you, and the communication was so clear. It gave somebody like me the confidence of like, okay, I can MSH, I can make stuff happen, for sure. Like,
And
so
and
yeah.
a lot of it was on you, because I think a lot of people don't realize that about remote work. They think, oh, this is great. I get to work from home. I don't have to be in an office. I don't have someone micromanaging me. But I can still micromanage remotely, can't I?
Yeah, yeah, and the biggest thing is like, it's like how do you work for a friend? And I've worked for friends before, and I mean, Disney, being at Disney like I did, I had friends that came in and out because we were all performers, and I was one that stayed there for a while. So it was just very, different working like that close, and then with somebody that was organized, that was like, here you go. It's almost like, here's your role, and I trust you to go do it. So that trust factor was awesome.
Did you find yourself having to get into some kind of a routine, because you're really on your own when you're doing remote work? Did you find that you had to get in some sort of routine to start working for me each day? And what was that?
Yeah, it was really difficult at first, because being a performer, your lifestyle is kind of like you're later in the day, like you got time to kind of rest and catch up. But then, yeah, when you have work, it's remote and you have to show up. Like if your work doesn't get done, that means that you don't get paid in the end because your client's not happy. And then that resting on somebody like me coming from the industry that I did, I'm like, I want to perform the best I can. I don't want to, and especially for somebody that I know, I didn't just apply for you. You offered it to me. So, it was I realized at one point in my free time, like I had to start developing my own schedule. But the awesome thing is that you had your standard of where I needed to work to be able to communicate with you, but the rest of the workload was, on my own and trusted. So then, kept it flowing. So yeah, that first project, when we got to the Delano and everything came together, I mean, what a spectacular event that was. I mean, the promotional video that you made for the company, I've seen that, quite often over the time to reminisce. And I'm like, wow, like, yeah, it's even more better watching it after the fact because we didn't get to enjoy it.
It looks more fun watching the video. We were like filming the part where Lee and I are like pulling our hair out and wondering why. Remember, we couldn't get some like electronic thing to work.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh yeah, it was the oh god, it's the technology, the projection, where it's almost like
that logo projection or something, and it wasn't working. And it's all these little things that come up at the last minute. But I think that's, again, someone like yourself is really good at, because where something like that really will stress me out. I remember you just saying, I've got this, go away, I'll handle it. And you did.
Yeah, actually. And that's the memory that I have. Like, we were both like ripping our hair out and you're like, we paid so much money for this. How did we get it? And it doesn't work. And even just to get it shipped there, I mean, that was very interesting. I'm in California and then I had to ship, it was a hologram. That's what it was. That was a hologram of their logo. It was a blast off with their logo. So yeah, I had to get that there and make sure it showed up to our room. And that was even difficult within itself. But a lot of those little details, you like learn skills you wouldn't when you were at a big company, where everything's kind of like you can pass on the work or sweep it under the rug sometimes.
How do you stay calm in a high stress situation like that? Like something doesn't go right. Because there was a level of calm that you were exuding, even though I am very bad in situations like that. I want to rip everyone's hair out. But how do you remain calm and focused? Because you really focused in and got it done.
Yeah, I do remember specifically when we were at the Delano and like we were so frustrated with that hologram not being able to work. And like I remember it was something just technically we couldn't get. And I just remember how strung out I was in my head just with everything. Cause I think I got in a day before you. I had switched hotels because of the way things were being shipped and happening. And so I had to go outside and take a moment. And I listened to myself and I find that, I mean, at Disney, because we were performers and we had to be at certain places at certain time, I was always understanding to myself if I was tired or needed rest or I couldn't socialize with people, I would try to avoid them so people didn't think I had a problem with them. The problem was with me sometimes, but I'd never like to inflict that. And then you being a friend, I was like, and the stress you're under actually in a trade show on top of hosting an event, meeting with clients, I was like, well, you hired me for this, so it's like, I can't freak out with you. I'm the one that's got to keep you calm. If I'm personal assisting correctly, so I took pride in that. So yeah,
you handled
definitely remove myself from the situation.
You handled it so beautifully. And I like what you say about just, taking a moment. And I think you literally stepped outside, which is not easy to do in Las Vegas. It takes a lot of doors to go through to get outside anywhere in Las Vegas. And just kind of reconnecting with nature, the air, the sky. And then when you came back in, you were just so composed and then it got done. It was amazing. So I think that's a really good point to make, because there are going to be those situations sometimes where things it's nobody's fault. They just don't go right.
You're right. And just to throw out a real life example, is like I got called to do a job this last week. I did last year. Last year was 3 days. And this year they only asked me once. So when it showed up, he kept talking like it was like 3 days. And I was like, hey, you need me more. And so I was in the middle of finals week. And so here I have 2 finals, one's online and then one's like actually record myself because I'm taking sign language class. And so it was just like I had to dedicate myself. And so that's kind of one of the skills that I honed in from you was, just schedule it. give yourself the time. I ate, I gave us a break. And yeah, now I'm reading in the courses that I'm taking that this is how you get through college. You can't just cram it in without like sleep or thinking that you could do it. So taking those chances to remove yourself is huge. So yeah, I learned a lot from you like that.
And let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you're really touching on listening to your own body. Your own body is sometimes screaming at you to stop. How good are you at listening to your body and then also responding? And do you kind of know the signs now when you're getting a little bit frantic or stressed and what to do?
Yeah, actually, what a great thing to bring up because I want to say, like, and I say this to everybody ever since the pandemic, it's like if there's anything that we learn from it is that, like, you can't do life without your health. You can't be successful, you can't show up. And I didn't realize it at the time in working with you, that actually I was as sick as I was. And so when I started addressing that, I was doing a driving job while the pandemic was happening. And once everybody kind of emerged from their homes and the stress became more real on the roads, living in Southern California, I was like, okay, I'm going to take my 2020 for me. And, it took a lot of fighting and almost kind of losing my life a few times that year, but working with doctors and being persuasive, and being like, I don't feel good, even to a doctor who's in a profession or a boss that's in a profession to explain, hey, like I can't show up if I don't feel good. And it was a scary thing for me, but I completely stopped work. And I mean, I was kind of inebriated in my bed for a couple of years, so I had to accept that fact. But I think that's the also what it comes to being healthy and listening to yourself is, understanding like, hey, my stomach hurts, but I'll drink coffee, or I'll maybe get rest, or I'll go out and I'll drink. And like, I used to do a lot of drinking in my entertainment days, and as I get older, I realize, oh, like, I'm lucky I had a physical job that kept me going. But if I had a desk job or in school, I don't know how I could be successful. It takes your time away. So when you give yourself time and you find what makes you feel good, like I was telling you, earlier when we talked, like about the 3 days of work, I'm like, now I know I'm better because I was able to put myself through a challenge I was not expecting or mentally predict or figure out, so sometimes we psych ourselves out to show up in a situation when we're nervous, or, don't think we can do it. But it's like you get into it and then you realize, oh, okay, this is not as bad as I perceive it to be. So I think like that's the takeaway about 2020 and that pandemic. I mean, and that can happen anytime again, but like we also don't have to isolate ourselves if you understand what it takes to protect
I think
yourself.
we were all kind of powering our way through 2019, not listening to our own bodies and
Like
someone just
supercharged.
put the brakes on everything and made us like realize. I think after 2020, I really started listening to my body more and I've taken a lot of that with me, moving forward and trying to pay attention to. And I just think the older you get too, it's harder to power through things. Like you were mentioning, there's certain things you can't eat and drink and like just recover so fast. So, and I really try to also listen to myself when I'm kind of feeling like I can't think anymore, and I just get so frustrated. But it might just be time to get some sleep.
Yeah.
And
And
just
that
like
can
your computer, it just reboots overnight.
be,
It's amazing.
yeah, as long as we keep telling ourselves like that, and it seems that we wake up that way. So yeah. And when
Yeah.
we're holding on to negative stuff, it'll catch up to us. And then we can't be successful.
So you took on this role at Pitch. It was a little scary. You weren't sure what to expect. It's been a while since you've worked with me now, but I just wanted to ask you, how do you overcome the fear of trying new opportunities? And you've done a lot of diverse things in your time in your career, but how do you overcome the fear of trying something new?
Like this always comes to mind. It's just show up. If you're giving something and you commit, that's all you're asked to do is show up, and then from each experience from there, you gain what you need to do to move forward. And I heard that at Disney, there was time where our morale was low and they were bringing in managers from everywhere, and they were talking about their experience at Disneyland. And this guy was like, yeah, and he ended up climbing very far. And I mean, when you're young and you're out of high school and, you're trying to figure out college, if you're going or not, or major, it's just like when you fall into a job like Disney, there's so many positions you can go into. And so, it was interesting. I knew what I wanted to do there, but the job entailed that I kept auditioning as much as I needed to keep my job. As far as every season would come in, new parades. So there was constantly competition. And, when I talked to people telling me I performed at Disneyland for as long as I did, they're like, oh, you're a dancer. And I'm like, no, I'm a performer. Like, I can perform. You give me something and I'll do it. That's actually, one of the things that I learned through Disney and just showing up is like, you'll be given something and you'll learn it. And there was one challenge during the block party bash that we had during the 50th anniversary where me and another boy got called to do this side of the Disneyland park instead of Disneyland's birthday for the 50th. And we were just like, we don't want to work that hard. It was an hour of consistent dancing, pushing heavy 900-pound cones, and then dancing it was pretty much an hour. But, the movements were hard and I'd never been trained, but the choreographers took some of us that had difficulties and worked with our feet enough that we gained that confidence of like, you know what, we're not dancers, but when I would do that parade, I had a specific choreographer that was an old school veteran parade performer, very respected. And so one day he came up to me, he's like, you dance this parade like it should be danced. And I was like, huh? And he was like, I don't need to explain myself. You just figure it out. And I was like, wow, okay. And then, yeah, it kind of marinated. And then I was like, oh, he's talking about, they gave me something and I just naturally let it happen. And no one's ever going to fault you for that. I learned in the end because they kept hiring me. So, like I always remember that nervousness. And like, the good thing is that I had friends there that we could just be goofy in front of and fail if we needed to. But for some reason they kept me, and so that made me love my job at the time,
It sounds like you got a good piece of mentorship there in that moment.
I did. And that I did grab a lot of little tiny mentorship pieces, but it's a chosen thing there. So sometimes when you do have the ability to move up, you're suppressed because there's other people trying to get above you. So, it's
Pretty
nice.
cutthroat.
Very, very. So it's nice that, the skills that I learned from someplace like that, I didn't let intimidate me. So when I had challenges from friends, that I could carry them out in a professional manner. And I always say that I learned a lot of those good skills. If I didn't go to college, Disneyland was my college because I at least learned that, especially, coming out of family business, how to, almost accelerate and learning more for yourself to put yourself out into the real world when you're young.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And it's just so incredible to me how everything has taken shape for you and all the things that you've learned. And I just think it goes to show too that, we talk about, I know you're in school now and you're taking college classes now, kind of later in life because you decided to go the entertainment Disney route first, which, some people decide to do because you kind of have to hit that entertainment stuff early in your youth, which, is great that you did that. But I think it's a misnomer that you have to have a college degree for everything. I look at how much experience you've had and that lived experience that you have has really contributed to what shapes you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I didn't complete high school. I dropped out when I was a sophomore. I was bullied really bad before bully was a thing. They were trying to, push the sexual harassment thing before we came to school. But my first 2 years of high school, I couldn't get away with it and found acceptance in an audition role that I did for Knott's Berry Farm. Actually, I was an actor as a paper boy, and that kind of led me into seeing that entertainment has accepting people. And I, grew up around Disneyland, 15 minutes from there. So like, I had always been fascinated with it. And as I got older and realized I'm like, oh, you could have a pass and there's a different community of people, I found acceptance. And that's huge because when you're young, I mean, especially now, I was watching something for school that we had to write a paper on. And, the F1 driver was talking about how he was bullied for his, racism and just what that did to him as a kid and how that's changing him now for in his platform. And it's crazy because we don't realize we're young, like we're absorbing all that and then it will have an effect on us later. So it's like just trying to find acceptance and then people who believe in you. We've talked about that before. It's just like there was a question I think we were going to touch on a little bit is like, in meeting you, why was I driven to you, and it was a very good question I thought about because my dad, I used to just trail him through trade shows and he would meet. And then you have that privilege of like already the open door. So when you're by yourself, it's just like, how do you meet people? And I'm deaf in my right ear. So I have an issue when it's loud that I can't hear people. So sometimes I yell and people just misperceive my energy over that sometimes. And so, it was interesting because the way that you reacted to me was like, hey, it's $25 to hang out with us. And I was like, I remember specifically, I was like, charge me. And then I went back to it because I had a good buzz. I remember that. And then your reaction was like, oh, you're fun. And I was like, you're fun too, because, there was that connection of like, no one's better than anybody else. And we all got our stuff going on, but we're here for a purpose. And so that specific year, I remember my dad had passed away the year before, and I was trying to figure out where I was going with his business. And I was working on it with my brother, and I'm the youngest of three. So the older brother and my mother weren't too keen on keeping it going. But I was like, we got to find where we're going in this. Otherwise, we give it up. And so it was really difficult working family business. And then, changing over to friends, working for friends before. It's like, having the challenge of the family business to be able to work for somebody that, you love and care for and you want to see successful, that some of that rides on you. So, yeah, it's very interesting, where you absorb learning in life through different things as far as school or work or just interactions with people, how much that could bring out of you.
And I like what you said at the beginning is just show up. And I'm actually so glad that you just showed up on our Pitch Live podcast today. Thank you, Lee, so much for joining us. You are an inspiration to me, truly. And so I hope that others will also be inspired by your words today. And we'll continue to follow you and see what you do. You can follow Lee on Instagram at The Leeway. And he has the most infectious, positive energy. And I promise, even if you just follow him on IG, you'll be surging your feet with positivity and inspiration. But yes, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this, sharing some insights on what it's been like to really follow your heart, which I always see you doing.
Thank you. I'm glad that you see that. I'll wear that on my sleeve for sure. So it's been a pleasure and this has been really cool. And it's been awesome to see you grow and where you're taking your information, especially from the Pitch with Amy Summer to INICIVOX and the mentorship program. Cause there's not a little mentorship out there, and if you're at a place like Disney or in a big corporate company, they're there because they want to move you up. But, the real world stuff is out there within small companies like this who make it. So thank you for having me. And
Lee actually was there at the beginning of INICIVOX. He helped me launch it. So I think the whole virtual mentorship, it really goes to what we were saying too, that, it's really hard to find mentors, especially, if you are in a cutthroat environment. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us here today on Pitch Live with Amy Summers. And be sure to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Give us a rating or review, give us your feedback, and it really does help us plan future episodes. And I hope you were inspired by Lee today and that you'll share this episode. I know there's somebody out there that really needs to see it. So be kind and simply share it. And as a bonus, as Lee mentioned, you can join us at INICIVOX.com too, where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge on as much mentorship as you want when you want it. I'm going to make sure that all these things are in our show notes so that you can follow both Lee and I, and let's get connected so we can help and follow your success along the way too. So until next time, MSH Lee.
That's right. Bye, Amy.